I can't really think of a catchy hook for this video. I kind of prefer that this one stays relegated to the 300 view cap. Earlier this week, I asked ChatGPT to make me a social media posting plan, and it told me that based on its research of my name on the internet, that I should make Wednesdays my political content day. So my job for this video is to talk about politics, and that's really hard for me to do. Earlier this year, I released my debut album. I centered the project around turning my grief into music. In my rollout, I've been doing a lot of mental health advocacy and just kind of talking to musicians and artists about some of the problems that I'm facing that I think are kind of normal for musicians and artists. But today I'm going to tell a story about another part of my life, because it's an absolute joy and honor that hundreds of thousands of people around the world are listening to my music and watching videos of me talking about mental wellness. But there is a big aspect of my identity that is not present in any of my promo content, and there's a really good reason for that. Back in 2010, way back in 2010, I was organizing against the G20 in Toronto, the group of 20 leaders of some of the most affluent nations in the world who get together and have a conference and talk about how to structure things on some level. And at that time, I felt a lot of opposition to that group of people. I still do. And I decided to organize with a whole bunch of anarchists and communists and left-wing radicals and wingnuts of my heart all over Ontario and Canada. And we put together a big resistance to the G20 convention in Toronto. Unfortunately, I was also in that process infiltrated by undercover police, specifically one undercover officer who got to know me pretty well under a fake identity. I thought we were friends, and inevitably he was in fact an undercover operator, police officer. And so that resulted in me and a little over a dozen other people getting charged with some pretty serious conspiracy charges. I had a conversation with my lawyer when I was in jail. And it wasn't the first time I had been arrested, but most of the times before had been for just kind of like civil disobedience, stopping dump trucks from going to dump sites and these kinds of things. So I'd been arrested, but it had mostly been almost ceremonial, really slap on the wrist, if you will, catch and release. And so when I spoke with my lawyer from jail, she said, "Well, Eric, it's gonna be days, not hours. You're gonna have to stay in there for a few days." And then the next conversation, she said, "It's gonna be weeks, not days." And then the third conversation, she said, "It might be a few months." And I said, "Hang on a second. The next conversation in this series, I don't really want to be having with you." But nevertheless, we were looking at potentially more than a decade in prison for our involvement in that organizing. What ended up happening is me and a small handful of other people, we pled to some pretty relatively minor charges, and the rest of the co-conspiracy group got their charges dropped unconditionally and went on to start businesses and families and become lawyers and things like that. So that kind of relates to why I don't post politically as often as you might expect if you know me a little better and know about my history and my politics. I have a lot of strong questions about resistance and some of the forms that protests take in the world. I think many of the injustices that we face are requiring a lot more than protest. So I guess I wanted to round in a little bit on some piece of political analysis that I do want to share with everyone who might stumble upon this video. And that is the blessing and the curse of the phrase that no one is free until we all are free. I think many of you watching will believe that. I believe that. And it's a beautiful and awful thing to believe, because it means that the injustice happening around the world is happening to your brothers and sisters, whether you're related by blood or not. And the magnitude of genocide, the magnitude of war and injustice touches you on a personal level. That's the hard, impossible part. And the beautiful part is that believing in shared humanity gives you access to some of the most meaningful and important things that are available to people, to being alive. Opening yourself up to that shared connection is profound, and I think it's behind all of the best art and all of the best music. Whoever you are and however you're relating to the way that the world is right now, I hope that you can access that shared humanity. I hope that you can let it fuel your passions and your projects, and I hope that many of you can let it connect you to movements of resistance against the profound violence and injustice that exists in the world. Okay, I guess maybe I'll close by just saying that, like, one of the lessons of being infiltrated and getting in trouble for a lot of the things that you say, it taught me to use aliases for a lot of the work that I do. It taught me to try and be less visible. And so as I publish my music and as I publish content like this, I also have to come to grips with the flip side, which is that I'm not actually that comfortable with people knowing about me without knowing a really profoundly important part of me, which is my politics. All right, there's a fucking sermon. Swipe on, enjoy your day. No one is free until everyone is free.